and welcome to Margarita Fashion Studio. In this video tutorial you can see how to sew this perfect summer dress. Fabric. I recommend to use fabric like poplin, eyelet cotton on linen. Lining if you need it. Interfacing I use medium. Foam for cups, mine is 5 mm. Under wires 6 mm boning, invisible zipper and under wires channeling. You also need a pattern, I leave link below the video, and let's get started. The pattern includes 1 cm seam allowance. Cut the bodice pieces along the seam allowance line. Cut the rest of the sheets along the dotted line and match the numbers of the hexagons. Glue the parts and cut the pattern along the seam allowance. I recommend to press with steam the fabric before you start and then place the pattern pieces correctly on the fabric. If the fabric has a scalloped edge, use it for the ruffles on the skirt. To cut the ruffles, add centimeters to the correct size. Also cut lining for the skirt. If you're not using, skip this step. For foam cups, cut out the seam allowances on all cup pieces except for the entire bottom edge. Draw the cup pieces one by one and don't forget the indicators. They are very important to sew the cups correctly. You can also mark the center front so you don't get confused. Now it's time to sew all parts of the bodice, pin center side to center front, right to right side and back side to center back, right to right side and sew by 1 cm. Next, pin the side seam, right to right side and sew by 1 cm. Finish all seam allowances with overlock stitch. If you don't have overlock, you can use zigzag stitch. Press the 2 front seams to the center front and the other seams to the center back. Pin side lower cup to center lower cup, right to right side and sew at 1 cm. Press with steam the seam allowance toward the center. For a better result, I recommend to use pressing hem or anything else you have to help you shape well. Top stitch on the right side at 7 mm. Pin the upper cup to the bottom, right to right side. The mark should be in the middle between the two lower cups and sew at 1 cm. Iron the seam allowance to the top and press with your hands. Top stitch on the right side at 7 mm. Now it's turn for the foam cups. Sew the bottom cups side by zigzag stitches. Next, sew the upper cup side by side to the bottom cups by zigzag, and don't forget to match all marks. Cover the zigzag stitch with underwire channeling on the bottom cups first. Sew on the both sides of the channel as close to the edge as possible. Next, cover the second zigzag stitch in the same way. Pin the right side of the fabric cup to the inside of the foam cup along the entire top edge. Sew by overlock or 5 mm from the edge. Open the two cups and iron the seam allowance to the fabric cup. Sew as close to the edge as possible. Turn the fabric cup from the right side and pin along the entire bottom edge to the foam cup. Sew by overlock or zigzag stitch. Iron all sides of the cup and press with hands for the better result. Allow the cups to cool completely. Mark all the seams of the bodice from the top and bottom edges at 1.5 cm. Measure the boning pieces between indicators and sew on the wrong side of the all seam allowances. Top stitch at 7 mm from the edge over all seam allowance to close the boning. Interface along the entire wrong side top edge of the bodice with 1.5 wide strip. Also interface the zipper area. Smooth the edges and iron the entire bodice. Now it's turn to make the sleeves. Mark the corner between the two seam allowances at 1 cm. Cut right to the corner and do the same from the other side. Make overlock stitch along the entire curve of the sleeve. Press the curve of the sleeve to the wrong side by 1 cm and be careful to not spoil the shape. Top stitch as close to the edge of the seam allowance as possible to make the channel for the elastic band. Pin the end of the elastic with small safety pin put into the channel. Carefully pull it to the other side, and when the safety pin comes out, make a zigzag top stitch on the end of the elastic to secure. put the elastic to the right size, in my case it's 28 cm, and make a small zigzag top stitch to secure. Carefully iron the ruffles, pressing only the elastic band. Press with steam the entire hem to the wrong side at 1.5 cm. Pin both sides of the sleeve wrong to wrong side, sew at 1 cm. Overlock stitch and press the seam allowance to the back. Next overlock stitch the entire sleeve hem. Top stitch the entire hem, sew as close to the edge of the seam allowance as possible. Leave a 3 cm unstitched area to insert the elastic band. Pin the end of elastic band with small safety pin. Insert the elastic into the channel, carefully pull it to the other side, and when the safety pin comes out, pull it to correct size to make a ruffles. Cut the elastic 2 cm longer. Place the two ends of elastic on top of each other by 1 cm and sew it in the middle. Stretch the elastic and top stitch the open area. Now the sleeve is ready to attach into the bodice. Match the sleeve seam with the side seam right to right side and pin the entire curve between the indicators. Sew at 1 cm from the edge. The seam should start and end exactly from the corners. Place the sleeve at the bottom and overlock the entire top edge of the bodice. Repeat on the other side as well as the center front. Fold and press the entire top edge of the bodice to the wrong side. Top stitch at 7 mm from the edge. Repeat on the other side as well as the center front. Now it's turn to sew the cups to the bodice. Pin the bottom edge of the cup all around the cup area. Match the front seam of the bodice with those of the cup and sew at 1 cm. Now it's turn for the underwires channeling. Sew it right to the seam of the cup along the entire bottom edge. The channel must be longer 1 cm on both sides. Carefully press entire cup area and top stitch the bottom edge of the entire channel as close to the edge as possible. Finish the seam right at the top edge of the bodice. Insert underwire seamed underwire channeling. If you don't want it, you can skip this step. but I promise a better result if you use it. Make a small zigzag stitches at both ends of the channel to secure the underwires. Cut the ends of the channel right next to the seam. Now it's turn for the skirt. Pin the back panel to the front panel in the side seam, right to right side, and sew at 1 cm from the edge. Overlock stitch from the top to the bottom and press the seam allowance to the back. Sew the pieces of the ruffles right to right side at 1 cm. For the ruffles, I use gathered foot. First I try it on a piece of small fabric and then sew the ruffles. If you don't have this foot, make 2 parallel stitches along the entire edge. The ruffles should be exactly the size of the skirt. Match all seams between the ruffles and the skirt and pin all around the edge. Carefully sew at 1 cm and make overlock stitch along the entire edge. Iron the seam allowance to the top without press the ruffles. Interface the zipper area with 2 cm white strip. Sew 2 parallel seams along the entire edge of the waist. The stitch should be as large as possible to pull the thread easy. Pull both threads at the same time to make gathered and spread evenly the ruffles. Place the skirt on the waist of the bodice, right to right side, match the side seams and pin along the entire length. It should be the same size. Next, sew at 1 cm from the edge. If you use lining, repeat the same step as the skirt. Place the lining on the wrong side of the bodice, match the side seams, and pin along the entire length. If you don't use lining, skip this step and make overlock seam along the entire length of the waist. Sew at 1 cm from the edge and make overlock stitch along the entire seam all once. Sew the back seam of the lining from the zipper area to the hem at 1 cm, right to right side. Cut right to the seam at the zipper area and make overlock stitch from the cut place to the hem along the entire seam all once. Iron the seam all once to one side and sew the lining to the main fabric in the zipper area. Repeat the same step on the other side. Now make overlock stitch along the entire zipper area, right to the cut place. Move the lining and pin the two center back from the zipper area to the hem right to right side. Match the seams of the ruffles at the back and sew at 1 cm from the zipper area to the hem. Make overlock stitch along the entire seam and iron the seam all once to one side. Open the zipper completely and place the right side of the zipper to the right side of the zipper area and pin one side. Install zipper foot on your sewing machine and sew first stitch without opening the zipper teeth. This stitch is to stabilize the zipper, to sew it much easier and look more professional. Finish at the end of the zipper area. Now open the teeth and make a second stitch as close as possible. Press the finished side carefully and close the zipper. Pin the other side, match the waist seams and the top edges of the bodice. Use the same steps to sew this side of the zipper as well. Sew the first stitch without opening the zipper. Now open the zipper and put the slider in the hole. Take the slider from the wrong side and open the zipper completely. You can start the second stitch from the bottom edge of the zipper, or you can move the zipper forward to the other side and start stitching at the top edge. Take the zipper slider between the two open sides of the zipper and pull it out from the right side. Fold the top edge of the zipper under the seam allowance and make a small top stitch to secure. And repeat the same steps from the other side. If the zipper is longer, make a small top stitch on the teeth about 5 cm from the edge of the zipper area and cut. Put the end of the overlock stitch under the seam allowance and top stitch to secure. For hem of the lining, I choose to finish with overlock stitch, and that's the final result.